to do this for Jim. I'm the old politician in the family.
I'm the old husband in the family.
That's all
I'm the old mayor in the family.
We feel like he is part of our family. A lot of you know that when he ran the first time, I ran his opponent's campaign. I didn't know him, and Michael Blasty is a longtime friend. And he said, I wouldn't, if I knew Michael was gonna run, I wouldn't run against him. Michael's just a good guy. But I met Jim, I've watched Jim, I like what he does. He's fair to everyone. And as I was telling some people in there a little while ago, going to Malta was a great experience for me because everybody, color, religion, it didn't matter, or your stature in life, whether it was the doctor or the administrators of the hospital or the janitor. Everyone was kind and talked to one another and treated one another with respect. And I told Gray, I said, I'm ready to move to Malta.
I almost did.
Or you're a permanent one,
You moved some dirt with your face.
He sure did.
I'm not gonna argue with you anymore.
Anyway, Jim has brought that to the city. He's carried that. I wish the country could catch on to Jim. Maybe we'll run him for something. I know, I've been there doing that. But Jim's great. He's good to everyone. He's fair for everyone, whether you're a child, whether you're elderly, whether you're black, white, brown, purple. It doesn't matter. He's been a champion for the arts. Absolute champion. And he is instrumental in the museum being where it is and bringing the art that it's brought. And we couldn't have done it without him. He's also a man of purses, the orchestra, and where's Theodore Arlington? They not here? Okay.
It's just on Main Street.
Yeah. Anyway, we love him because he's a champion of the arts, but he's just an all-around good guy. For those of you that don't know him, you need to get to know him, and this is Mayor Jim Ross.
Well, first of all, I wanna thank Paula and Gray for hosting this. These types of functions are so critically important when you're running for office, to get out and just have conversations with people and let them see who you are and what you're about, and let them ask questions. And for those of you who haven't gotten to know me, gives you an opportunity to get to know me, although I think I know pretty much all of y'all. People always ask why I ran for mayor, and the short answer is I just love our community. I think we have probably the most loving and welcoming community around, but we have a community that inspires people. Some of y'all have heard this story before, but I'm gonna tell it again because it exemplifies what this community means to me. I have 4 kids. I have almost as many ex-wives as I have kids. I have 3 ex-wives, 4 kids. But
There with you, thank you.
thank you. But
The man gets around.
I've learned that I'm a so much better ex-husband. No. One of my kids, he's 36 years old, has cerebral palsy, and mentally he's fine, speech-wise he's fine, but physically he has severe scoliosis with a hip that shoots out. He's short and very, very crooked, and he's had physical disabilities his whole life. And he's had multiple back surgeries, hip surgeries, knee surgeries, and he grew up saying, Dad, I'm gonna be an actor. And as his father, I would say stuff like, well, yeah, let's work on plan B, because being an actor is hard enough for able-bodied people, but when you are short and crooked, it's 100 times more difficult. Thank goodness he never listened to me, because he continued to audition and get small roles here and there, and everything. I continue to put him on payroll at the law firm and everything. But COVID hits and he auditions via Zoom for a show that was gonna stream online. And they couldn't see that he was short and crooked. So he gets hired, he shows up and they're like, this, I don't know, but they kept him. And that show gets bought out by Paramount, it gets picked up by Netflix, and he signs a 7-year, multi-million-dollar deal with Netflix as a result of being hired. It's a show called The Chosen about the life of Christ. And my son plays one of the leads in that show. And that opened the door for him to be on Taylor Sheridan's 1883 every episode, and Black Panther 2, and he's just really done phenomenal things. But I tell you the story because when his father, me, was not giving him the confidence and the courage to do what he should be doing, and that's pursuing his dream, this community stepped up and did that. He went to Creative Arts Theater on Randall Mill, if y'all remember Cats up there. Miss Pierson, he was at, where'd you go? There you are. Him and my daughter went to dance at her studio. They went to Theater Arlington. They did Casa Manana, it was an AISD drama. This community gave him the confidence and courage to pursue his dreams. I didn't do that. It took a little bit for me to mature and realize that I had to own that. But the only way I can give back to the community is to serve it. And you can go on and on. And what's great about this community is those stories exist for those of y'all who are neck deep in the arts. You see those stories exist about this community day in and day out. So this is an unusually telling group because I know a lot of y'all are in the arts and you know exactly what I'm talking about, how this community will support you and take care of you. So when I first became mayor, I knew that I wanted to just create a thriving Arlington. But the only way I knew to do that as a lawyer and as a restaurateur and just a businessman was job creation. So we set about trying to figure out how to create the most jobs. And we have an economic development corporation that we didn't fund until 2021. So we started funding it in 2021. We have an Office of Economic Development that we created within the city, and we have our Department of Strategic Planning. That, in conjunction with our city manager's office and the mayor and city council, have to work collaboratively on going after these things. But what we go after is unusual. Because people will ask me now, well, Mayor, how is it that Arlington is thriving? How is it that Arlington has all these good jobs and everything going on? And I'll tell you that we don't chase business. We don't chase projects. We don't chase events. We chase relationships. And I can tell you that our theory and our strategy has worked. Because in the last 5 years, we've brought nearly 30,000 new jobs to Arlington. We've increased the average wage in Arlington by over 20%. And there are 13 new North American and world headquarters that call Arlington home now. That is phenomenal. And when I say we chase relationships, a good example of that is this. We just had the inaugural Grand Prix of Arlington, an IndyCar racing around the stadiums. And it was a phenomenal event. Roger Penske, I was there with him and Jerry Jones and Ray Davis, and Roger Penske was like, Mayor, this is the best inaugural weekend IndyCar has seen in the world, ever. He goes, if you give me 5 years, I'll make it bigger than Indy 500. I'm like, hell yeah, come on. Yeah, that's quite an accomplishment. But anyway, they were going on. We never went after the Penske group. We never went after Grand Prix. We never did any of that. What we did was years ago, we developed a relationship with the Rangers, 54 years ago, when we brought them here, and we kept them here. We got the Cowboys here, and we kept them here. And then the Cowboys and the Rangers and the Penskes were all friends, and they get to talking about what's going on here in Arlington. And Roger Penske goes, well, if there's that much going on, maybe we should do an IndyCar thing in Arlington. And they start talking it up, and then they call us and they say, how would you feel about IndyCar racing on the streets of Arlington? That's how we get those type of things going. Another good example is you may have heard of eSpace, a big low orbit satellite manufacturing company that we were able to get here in Arlington. eSpace is, in my opinion, the next General Motors type of deal for Arlington. We are in the process of building nearly a 500,000 square foot manufacturing plant down at our airport. And that manufacturing plant will be manufacturing satellites that will be sold all over the world. And it is a multi-billion-dollar industry. So I'm dealing with the CEO of eSpace, and they say, okay, we're coming to Arlington, here's what we're doing. And we've committed to help building the building, help develop the building. Now here's what we've done, and people say, well, I can't believe you pay tens of millions of dollars to get a company into Arlington. We didn't pay tens of millions of dollars to the company. We invested tens of millions of dollars in a facility that we own, that the company leases from us. We get it built, they lease from us, they come in, we get all the tax benefits from that. They get to ultimately try to buy the building if they want to, but they then have to pay us for it. But they come to us and they say, we're gonna build this thing, we wanna be in Arlington, you're the right place for us. So 10:30, the night before we're to sign the deal, the CEO calls me and he says, Mayor, I got some bad news. One of the competing cities called me and they put twice the amount of money on the table that Arlington has put. And they said, he goes, I have to take that to my board. And I know it's the day before we're doing this deal, but what do I tell my board? And I said, you tell your board, or you ask your board, where was this city when you went to them and said, here's what we need? Arlington saw your vision. We understood what you wanted. We circled the wagons and we delivered everything. We share your passion, we share your vision. So who do you want to get in business with? A city that will lie behind the log and wait to try to undercut somebody, or someone that's going to share that vision and passion from the get-go? So he goes, all right, let me see. He calls me back at 2:30 in the morning. I know. Well, I get paid the big bucks for this. So he calls me back at 2:30 in the morning and he says, we had an emergency board meeting and we're staying with Arlington. It was because of the relationship. I like to say, I wish we could measure our wealth different than the size of the buildings that we own, or how much money is in the bank account, or what kind of car we drive, or how beautiful our house is, or all of those types of things that we traditionally use to measure our wealth. And if we measure our wealth based upon relationships, your relationship with your God, with your family, with your friends, with your community, if you measure your wealth based upon relationships, we are the richest city, and I am the richest mayor around, in spite of all the craziness you hear about me. We are wealthy as can be. So we've done a few other things that are pretty, I think, spectacular. And I say we because I'm going to be candid. Jim Ross hasn't done anything by himself. Some of these people have served on city council here and school board and everything else. None of this stuff is an individual sport. sometimes it feels like a contact sport, but none of it's an individual sport, it's a team sport. Council and the mayor work hand in hand. And when I became mayor, there was a horrible relationship between police and fire and city hall. The firefighters had sued the city and they won on appeal for retaliation, because what happened when they went civil service, there was some lines drawn in the sand that said, if you do this, we're gonna take your benefits away from you, we're gonna do X, Y, and Z. And when the city did that, the firefighters sued the city. The police officers were struggling with meet and confer. I'm a former cop here in Arlington. I spent 13 and a half years as a cop, part of Arlington's first SWAT team. I was undercover for 7 years. I had the most beautiful mullet that anybody could have. I was the really Joe Dirt undercover police officer. But we went to work to fix and mend those relationships. We settled the lawsuit. We reinstated some of these benefits. We mended the fence between police and fire and the city. And now, every year I've run, police and fire have stepped up and endorsed me on that. Also, the Arlington Board of Real Estate, realtors have come out and they've endorsed me as well. The endorsements are great and I appreciate it, but it's not the end all and be all. You can't rely upon your endorsements, because you just gotta get the message out that here's what we've done. Well, here's what we've done and how the mended relationships with police and fire have worked for us. With the firefighters, we've been able to increase our manpower and go to 4-man staffing. The International Fire Code doesn't allow firefighters to fight fires with less than 4-man staff. And Arlington was using 3-man staffing to respond to fires. So the firefighters would have to wait to get backup before they were legally able to fight these fires. And it was a dangerous situation for both the citizens and the firefighters, and now we have 4-man staffing citywide, and we don't have to wait to get a backup so our firefighters can be there. We also have a whole blood program with the firefighters. We implemented that about 7 months ago now. The whole blood program enables the Arlington Fire Department, the only fire department in the country, to have whole blood with them at the scene of an accident. And they're able to administer first aid to victims of heavy trauma situation that are losing blood and they need that blood right away. And as a result of our whole blood program, our firefighters have been able to save now over 25 lives in the last 7 months. Because we've increased the staffing, we've been able to shorten the response time for all 911 calls for both police and fire. And Arlington has one of the most spectacular aviation units anywhere in the country. And people say, well, I didn't know Arlington had an aviation unit. Arlington can fly drones like a military pilot does without line of sight. We are the only city in the country that has that ability, and we send drones out to respond to emergency calls because the drones can get there faster than the police cars can get there. And then the pilots can relay information back to the responding units out there. But here's what it means for y'all. Every year for the last 5 years, crime has decreased in Arlington. Last year alone, crime decreased over 12%. Arlington is now the 2nd safest city in the state of Texas and the 7th safest city in the country. That is an incredible statistic on how that means, what it means for our families who live here in Arlington. You hear stuff about, oh man, there were budget woes last year. There was. Last year was a horrible year from a budget perspective. 3 years ago, we gave the largest property tax cut in over 30 years in Arlington. But last year, it was a crazy anomaly because the Tarrant County Appraisal District started doing some crazy stuff. at the direction of our county judge, and I'll just be candid about that. The Tarrant County Appraisal District was appraising properties back when they would appraise properties, and they did it at 10% lower than comparable properties in adjacent counties around us. So properties like this house here in any other counties would be appraised at 10% higher than what they're appraised at here, which means school districts and cities, the municipalities, would get fewer dollars as a result of it.
Can I interrupt you for a minute?
Yeah.
So that's every city inside of Tarrant County. That's every school district inside of Tarrant County. That's how big a deal that was when they did that.
Yeah, it's a horribly bad deal. Another thing they did was they allowed traveling HFCs to come into Arlington and pull multifamily units off of our tax rolls. Here's what I mean. An HFC is a housing finance corporation. A lot of the cities have them, not every city has them, but a lot of cities do have them. Arlington has a housing finance corporation. If a developer or an investor wants to come in and buy an apartment complex or build one in Arlington, they can apply for tax credits on that, a 4% or 9% credit. Now, they have to meet certain criteria. There has to be a certain amount of people within this complex that are gonna be below a certain percentage of income and things such as that. We had a particular developer come, or an investor come into Arlington and say, hey, we're buying an apartment complex up here off of Washington and Collins. We're buying it for $81 million. And we want to do some tax credit stuff in this complex. And they applied to do so with Arlington's Housing Finance Corporation. And our people looked at it and they said, we're sorry, you're not eligible. So what they did was they went to Pecos, Texas, population of like 2,500, and they went to Pecos and they said, we're gonna pay you, Pecos, to be a partner with us in this investment. And you're gonna be the managing partner because you're at HFC, and then you're gonna go into Tarrant County Appraisal District and pull that property off the tax rolls. And that's exactly what happened. That property alone cost us about $800,000 a year. So they have low values, then Tarrant County Appraisal District stops appraisals altogether for 3 years. They just stopped appraising properties, which means in Tarrant County, while other properties increase in surrounding counties, Tarrant County's properties have no increase, so there's no increase going on at all here. There were certain things that we were able to plan for. For like instance, in Arlington, we have an aging group of people. This year, I turned 65. Last year, I turned 65. Or I'm 66 this year. Last year, I turned 65, which made me eligible for a tax freeze on my property taxes here. We can plan for that because we know how many people are aging out on tax-wise. We also knew that we were losing the last of our ARPA monies, which was the COVID relief monies that we got from the federal government. We were able to plan for that. But when Tarrant County Appraisal District starts doing all this other stuff on the last minute, you can't plan for that. The other thing they did was they had a different system with the appeals on their appraisal values. So they come in here to Ray and Paula's house and they say, we're gonna appraise your property at X, Y, and Z. And Paula says, well, we're gonna appeal that. Well, historically, we're used to about a 1% variance when it goes to appeal. Last year, Tarrant County Appraisal District went from 1% to 3%. Now that 2% doesn't sound like a whole lot, but when you're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars throughout Tarrant County, it was tremendously impactful on all of us. Arlington got hit harder than other cities like Fort Worth because Fort Worth has 350 square miles with less than 100 square miles of development. Arlington has 99 square miles and we're about 98% built out. So Fort Worth is able to make up those gaps easier by having green space development. They bring more developers in, and Arlington doesn't. But we were able to go through and we were able to adjust fees and cut positions. We didn't have to do any layoffs, but we eliminated positions that were vacant, about 42 of them. We were able to consolidate certain things. In doing that, we initially had a $26 million shortfall. In doing that, we ended up cutting about $15 million, which still left $11 million that we had to adjust for. So we then had a choice, and we looked at everything, because we could go through and start eliminating services and pay raises and everything like that. But those who have served know that when you eliminate pay raises, and it was only a 3% pay raise, you're kicking an issue down the road that you later have to deal with.
And they leave.
And they leave, okay? So we can't afford to do those type of things. So we had to have an increase of the property tax. Now, are we gonna need to do it again? And the answer is absolutely not. I've already seen the projections of this year. We are right on target. We're gonna be able to give pay raises. I don't anticipate any tax increase, and we may be able to get a little tax decrease. It just depends on how it comes out. But last year was anomaly. So you'll hear the other side say, oh, I'm always about all new taxes, or no new taxes. You can't have a moratorium on anything, because you have to be prepared to deal with all of this. They also say there's gonna be a moratorium on no new multifamily. I don't believe that we should have multifamily in certain areas, and I take exception to some of that rhetoric, because what happened with with my predecessor and I having issues was they wanted to bring 5 multifamily apartment complexes into the property north of I-30 over here between Collins and Center Street. And when I said no, they got all kinds of upset, and it went downhill from there. The city now owns all 40 acres that are up there. We bought the other half of that from the people that the Moritz and Cavender sold it to. They wouldn't sell it to the city because they were upset with us. They did go ahead though 2 years ago, and they got a deed restriction on their property because they didn't want us to bring an HEB in and put it over there, because they didn't want it to upset Whole Foods. Well, Whole Foods has already said we're only gonna be here for 3 more years. That was a year ago, so you can anticipate Whole Foods is gonna be here for 2 years, and then they're gone. So I'm not at liberty to tell you whether or not that store with 3 letters is coming or not, but I can tell you, if you're excited about those type of things, you'll have a reason to be excited, okay?
You're working on that relationship with Mr.
I'm
Buzz.
working on relationships. Thank you, Paula, I appreciate that. Working on the relationships with there. So anyway, we have some really cool things like that going on. The bottom line is, there's a lot of easy rhetoric to throw out there to say, here, the city's just doing bad. And the fact of the matter is, we're doing great. Wallet Hub lists Arlington, Texas as the best run city in North Texas, the 2nd best run in the state of Texas. They say Lubbock is the best run. I don't know how the hell that happens, because must be a bunch of Red Raiders on the committee or something. Lubbock's #1, Arlington's #2 in the state of Texas. The state comptroller gives Arlington all 6 stars of transparency for our financial handling. We are the largest city in the state, one of only 11 cities in the state to have it, and the largest one to have all 6 stars of transparency. We are a Triple Crown winner from the Association of Government Finances, which looks at everything going on. We are the only Triple Crown winner in the state of Texas. You look at our credit rating, whether it's with Fitch, S&P, Moody's, or whatever, we have stellar credit ratings.
And that's important.
And that's critically important. We have done some phenomenal things from an economic perspective, from driving new business here to balancing our budget. You'll hear stuff that said Arlington was left in the red. Let me tell you something, in the history of Arlington, it is the law in the state of Texas that no city can be left with a deficit at the end, ever. Every city, every year finishes with a surplus. Yeah, and they will, it's required of us, and Arlington excels at that. So what's coming new? We have some pretty cool things that are happening. If you saw the construction on Lamar, the police department's being built over there, our north side police substation right across from Hurricane Harbor. In the old antique mall is a new police substation and property room. We just reopened fire station number 8 over by Whole Foods. We'll be starting construction at the end of this year on fire station 18, which would be the 18th fire station in the city of Arlington. We just did the ribbon cutting for the storefront inside Choctaw Stadium for the police department. That was out there. Very, very cool to put police presence right in the heart of the entertainment district. We have this little thing coming around the corner called the World Cup. 9 games of the World Cup coming here to Arlington. It's the largest event of any kind, not just sporting event of any kind worldwide being held here. 9 games over a 30-day period. Expected economic impact in North Texas is expected to exceed $2.2 billion. We are on fire. We have businesses, we have events, all kinds of stuff coming to Arlington. Yes, I have been talking to the Dallas Stars about coming to Arlington, the hockey team, the National Hockey League. Whether or not we're gonna get them, I'm not really sure yet, but I'll tell you another person, another group that approached us, those of you in the arts would really appreciate this, is the Sphere in Vegas. So they've approached us about possibly doing a smaller version of the Sphere coming out of Choctaw Stadium to have about a 9,000 or 10,000 seat capacity for concerts and everything like that. So could you picture, Nick, the Arlington Symphony Orchestra in the Sphere of Arlington, Texas? How cool would that be, huh? Those type of things are in the works. We are center stage in the world right now. We really got it going on. You will see shovels in the ground at Lincoln Square this summer. Finally, it's taken a little bit, but shovels in the ground at Lincoln Square. Rolling Hills, if you've looked at Rolling Hills recently, they are well underway with their development up there. The back 75 acres is going to be luxury homes of 750 or 650,000 and above, and the front 25 acres will be a mixed-use grocery store. We're looking at like a Trader Joe's or something like that to come in, along with some type of senior living and things along those lines. Just tons of stuff happening. The bottom line is it's not time to change. We don't want to get off this ride when we have all the momentum going. It's time to keep our foot on the gas and to take advantage of the momentum. Don't believe the rhetoric that Arlington is just falling apart. There is nothing falling apart here in Arlington. We are blowing and going, and we have so much happening. It's incredible. Arlington is the most diverse city in the state of Texas, and last month we became the 3rd most diverse city in the country. And I believe we're the most diverse because we're the most welcoming. It's natural for our community to care about one another. Here in Arlington, I don't care if you look like me, if you worship like me, if you love like me. All I really care about is if you treat each other with dignity and respect. And I think we do that better than any other community I'm aware of. And I think that's the reason why businesses are moving here. That's the reason why we're getting all of these huge events here. That's the reason why we're getting these types of interest in our community. We have hiccups along the way. We have an administration right now in the country that has eliminated DEI. I struggle with that because I'm the mayor of the most diverse city in the state. How am I supposed to be the mayor of the most diverse city in the state and I can't use words like diversity, equity, and inclusion? That's really, really difficult for me. And it forces us to evaluate our policies and procedures in Arlington, because if we don't, we're subject to losing federal grant monies or being sued by the federal government for a Federal Claims Act. So we're trying to have a balancing act of keeping our monies, but keeping our trust with our communities as well. A couple of days ago, maybe yesterday, 2 days ago, my days are blurring together, by the way. I went to the location of a new mosque in Arlington, down off New York. And I knew that when I put different things regarding cultural differences on my social media, that some people are critical of it, some people are supportive of it. It's disheartening to see some of the really incredible hate and discrimination that still exists today in 2026. If you don't think it does, get on the Jim Ross for Arlington Facebook and look at the post I did for going to the construction of this new mosque, and read the now nearly 400 comments that are on that one post and see what we're talking about. I don't care. Those of you, some of y'all know me real well, and you know that I am sort of a very outspoken, just an in-your-face type of person.
No.
Not at all.
I don't care. I don't make apologies for who I am. I believe in leading with integrity, and for me, integrity means people follow you because of who you are, not what you are. And what you see is what you get with me. So here's the difficult part of this race. I think we have some really good ground level support, and I think the other side of this campaign has done a great job of making people dislike what they're doing. However, they have people financing their campaign that are bottomless pockets. And in this last 30 days, I'm spending about $250,000. A good chunk of that is my own money. But they're spending 4 to 5 times that. They're spending over 7 figures in an Arlington mayor's race. That's never been seen before. And I know it's in there because my campaign tracks all of their text messages, all of their mailers, all of their everything. We can see what's going on. It's not all being reported yet. It will have to be eventually, but they're gonna spend well over $1 million on this campaign. So we need financial help on this, and every penny counts. I get it, some people can't give, and I'll take prayers. I'll take prayers as well, and I'll take volunteers, and I'll take block walkers and poll workers, and I'll take all of those types of things. And we need you to talk to your neighbors and your family and your friends and encourage them to get out to vote. What they are banking on is that we have your stereotypical May election here in Arlington, where it's low in numbers, it's almost exclusive very conservative, elderly white people. I like conservative, elderly, white people. Not all of them like me, however. So I need people who see things for what they really are to come out and vote. So with that, I'll open it up to any questions you may have. Yes, sir.
Quick statement and then a question. Along with the uncle of that guy right there, Tommy Hateman, who's, anybody doesn't know, a guy named Tom Vandegrift, you're the best at selling Arlington. And in my view, that's the main job of the mayor. So that's the statement part. The question part is, what's, I'm not sure I got the name right, Housing Finance Authority? Corporation.
HFC.
How the hell did that
I'm
happen?
wondering that too.
That's crazy.
So here's what happened. There used to be a loophole in the law. Now, after this happened, we addressed it because we sued Pecos HFC. Arlington sued them and we won, okay? We also started a big push in Austin with our legislature. I went down there on several occasions and testified to the committees down there, talking about that. We were able to get it through, and it's been signed into law now, went into effect last fall, last September, that HFCs are sort of restricted now into their own backyard, okay? So we've limited that, but we were the ones that started all of this stuff on that, because Fort Worth, Dallas, and everybody else, they didn't notice this was happening to them because they didn't have the direct impact that it did on us. And so we were able to make some adjustments on there. So we don't have that sneaking up on us again. Tarrant County's doing some weird stuff. I'm gonna be candid with you. I'm not a fan of what Tarrant County is doing. Y'all probably remember, you know, I went down and I testified to the county commissioner's court.
Did they let you speak?
They barely. I spearheaded an effort with 9 other mayors where I wrote a letter to the Tarrant County Commissioner's Court saying, your redistricting efforts, according to our experts, because City of Arlington hired experts, are illegal and they're discriminatory. And they're not based on political party that they said they were based on race and ethnicity. And that was discriminatory. And I went down as the only mayor in Tarrant County to testify against them. They pissed me off. And in Tarrant County, I mean, they did. In Tarrant County, it's weird to have a bad relationship like that. We had Glenn Whitley before. Glenn was a Republican. Betsy Price was a Republican when she ran for it. Those are good people. I went down to Glenn Whitley, just did a videotape testimony. Y'all probably saw it on my Facebook, you know, saying we had great relationships. Tim O'Hare and I do not have a good relationship.
We like that.
Any other questions?
I have one, for a
Yes, ma'am.
statement.
Yes, ma'am.
You were talking about FIFA,
Yes, ma'am.
and are you aware, you probably are, that of all the cities involved, there's only one museum that's gonna actually host the FIFA exhibits from Zurich. Where's Chris? From Zurich, that's the actual FIFA exhibits, and it's gonna be right here in Arlington, Texas. Not Dallas, not the Perot, but the Arlington Museum of Art.
So let me throw this out about our cultural life here in Arlington, because this has been, Chris will tell you back when we were looking to move the museum, it was a struggle. Chris and I met with every single council member and did the pitch, saying, here's what we're doing. We looked at this place, this place, this place, this place. Here's where we need to go. And we know, I'm gonna be candid, you don't make a fortune at museums. Very few museums anywhere in the country are rolling in dough, because that's not what they're positioned to do. If you can be sustainable, you're doing good. And it's even more difficult when you have 2 museums that are starting up in the same area, like the Medal of Honor Museum and the Arlington Museum of Art. Neither one of them are rolling in on different things. You have to adjust those things accordingly, and Chris is doing it, like trying to get events in. You gotta work with them on getting the catering done, I know. Getting all the catering done right and everything like that. But the museum, the Medal of Honor Museum's having the same difficulties. It's tough when you're on there, and this doesn't happen overnight. So it's an ongoing battle from a cultural perspective of people always trying to say, well, what about this? We just did a thing with Shakespeare in the Park here in Arlington. And they came in and wanted some additional monies to do Shakespeare in the Park. You know what the complaints I got from other members of the Tomorrow Foundation Board was? Well, they're not a brick and mortar facility. And I'm like, who the hell cares? They're using brick and mortar facilities here in Arlington, and they're doing incredible cultural type things. So we ended up getting everybody convinced. It wasn't a unanimous decision, but we were getting everybody convinced on that. And we'll continue to push that. We are pushing for another cultural district designation with the state of Texas. That's gonna help us, because that will help us get more monies in from the state as well. So we'll get there with it. But the cultural life in Arlington is rich. We just have to let everybody else hear about it and take advantage of it. Yes, ma'am?
Okay, since you opened that door. Since you opened that door. So I understand that the, Bob Duncan is gonna get torn down. Is that not the case? Okay, because I've heard that from other people every time I bring it up.
Yeah, it's been in discussions, but there are no plans right now to tear anything down.
Okay, so in that billions of FIFA dollars that are coming in, how can we get a facility that is for the citizens of Arlington to use as a performance space? Because what we're up against right now is, we have the Arlington Music Hall, which was not designed to be a performance space like that. It was designed as a movie theater. So there are a lot of limitations there. In trying to partner in the CBPA, which is a beautiful space, but we weren't able to even get in because they had sold the parking lots for the Ranger game or something. So it's like the entire facility was taken out of as a possibility because the parking lots are being used for the sports teams.
I've got a suggestion.
You do?
The other half of the Arlington Museum of Art should be a performance.
Well, there you go. But here's my other concern. You know, we don't get, everything is so far north. We do not get the other half of Arlington, which is all south of 20. And if there were something that were a little closer to I-20, hence the Bob Duncan area, perhaps there would be a place for people. I know that, you know, the Master Chorale has to go to different churches. They don't have a space really that's not, and in my experience, in trying to go to some of those larger churches to perform, it came with the requirement that they run a video or, you know, it was a little proselytizing kind of situation. So it's real hard not to have, and people just say, well, we'll just go to Dallas or Fort Worth, we'll go to Bass Hall, we'll go to Meyerson, we'll go to some, or they go to Mansfield. They don't come up here for these kinds of things. So this is my concern.
Yeah, my concern as well. So here's where we're trying to balance, because I have different minority groups like our Vietnamese, our Asian population that says we would like to have a community space or something, a cultural center like that. Is there something we can do that is a combination to like the museum or like whatever it is?
Right.
So we're looking at a number of different options. One of the things we're looking at doing right now is I think we're gonna make a deal with Seneca Glass. Are y'all familiar with them? Seneca Glass is a guy who graduated from UTA and their glass department, or their glass blowing department over there. He has been over in Fort Worth for 20-something years now. They have a big cultural glass blowing business where they have all this other stuff going on. They're looking at moving into downtown Arlington to start doing this in conjunction with UTA and AISD. So we're excited about those type of things. The more cultural types of development we get, the easier it is for me to leverage that to do things like what you're talking about.
Because there's I mean, we have great visual arts, we have a lot of
Yes.
visual arts. Performing arts, not so much, and not so many spaces that are viable for us. We can't be on the Levitt Pavilion in the middle of the summer
No.
trying to, and it's concrete, so you can't dance on that, without harming people. So I think sometimes we get lumped all into one cultural arts, but the performing arts are not a part of that, and they are not very much on anybody's radar.
No, I agree. That's
All
why,
about visual.
that's why, you know, as mayor, we're trying to stay engaged with all of that. Nick gets me to come out because they need a guest conductor every once in a
Of course
while. You know, so I'll come out and do that. I've, this weekend, yesterday, I went to UTA and I was doing, stepping. Is that what do you do stepping? Stop horse. You know, I was out there stepping. You know, I hate to sound really old and not hip. I don't think hip's a good word anymore. But those of y'all who were from the 60s and 70s know what I mean. So, you know, we try to engage with people and let them know it's okay to step out and do these type of things. But, you know, we'll continue to search for things such as that, and we're not gonna do that. Chris, did you have something on
I
that?
was just gonna help you a little bit. The Parks and Rec and Culture is looking at some options for performing arts.
Really?
So,
Yeah.
Stand
Let me
up.
tell you, Gary Packin is back, and Gary is our new Parks and Rec director, and he is so stinking cool. He's just really good.
It's very creative.
He is, yeah.
And I'm new here, upcoming VP at the Board of Directors at the Symphony. Would you look at other use cases, whether they're in America or abroad, to look at successful things and how they have impact not only the local community but also finances?
Anything like that you have, I will look at anything. I'm a big proponent of developing those relationships. We've been working with Japan, for instance. I've been to Tokyo and Osaka and met with the U.S.-Japan Council. Now, starting this year, Arlington, Texas is hosting the Texas-Japan Economic Summit for 3 years in a row. And we're bringing massive companies from Japan here. So I'm all about doing those types of things. So yes, and feel free to contact me and share that with me.
We will.
Anything else, Jessica?
So I've only been here for 6 months in Arlington. I did grow up here as a child, back in the 80s and 90s, so I'm back here from Dallas. And I'm in my 50s, and so I'm starting to locate really great doctors in Dallas, and it's been very hard to want to find new doctors. So I'm wanting to kind of understand Arlington and the vibrance of the health community
Yeah.
and how it's doing, because honestly, right now I'm trekking all the way back to Dallas to not lose any of my
What do you know
awesome
about the health
doctors.
community?
My name is Dr. Ignacio Nunez. I'm a retired OB-GYN doctor, and I'm the former chief of staff of Arlington Memorial Hospital, and I sit on the governing board of Texas Health Resources, the largest healthcare service company and hospital company and physician company in North Texas. So to answer your question, Arlington has two major hospitals, MCA and Arlington Memorial. They're all preceded by the words Texas Health, Arlington Memorial, and then HCA in South Arlington. And Mansfield is a Methodist hospital system. So we have three competing hospital systems from South Arlington to North Arlington. There are a lot of really good doctors. The problem is that when you come from Fort Worth to Dallas, there's a perception. The perception is, yeah, you know, it's a mid-city. We're not a mid-city. We're a huge urban city. What are we in the state of Texas?
We're 7th in the state, 50th in the country. We're bigger than Pittsburgh, New Orleans, St. Louis, about the same size as Tampa.
And that's the part that people who are from the DFW area, they don't get that. So there's great oncology at Arlington Memorial, just as there is at all the other two hospitals. There's great surgeons. There's great robotic surgeons. There's everything you can get here. Now, there's a difference between primary care, secondary care, tertiary care, and I'm going to call tertiary care trauma. And then there's quaternary care. Quaternary care is you have some rare disease, you got a medical school in Dallas, Southwestern, where I graduated from, and I would go there in a heartbeat if I had that kind of a problem. I also would not be afraid to go to Moncrief Cancer Center. It's also part of UT Southwestern in Fort Worth. We have great care in Tanner County. It's just, it's that fear of starting a new relationship with a new physician. That's the hard part. The hard part for everybody is we're not graduating enough primary care physicians in the country, much less here. So trying to find an internal medicine doctor or a family practice doctor is hard everywhere. But once you find one, keep them and let them guide you in the pathway. You know, I could try and market THR, but that's not the point, and that's not the question you're asking. There's good care amongst all the hospital systems in DFW. We're lucky to live in DFW to have that kind of care. You don't have to go to the Mayo Clinic. You don't have to go to MD Anderson, because world-class care is in Dallas and Fort Worth and here. Does that help a little?
I can give you a little insight. We have been approached. I know that there's a new hospital group that has purchased some property down in South Arlington. It's not gonna happen immediately, but they're talking about building a 40-acre hospital complex down in South Arlington in addition to that. And it's another, just like Texas Health Resource and HCA and South Arlington, it's another, Baylor Scott and White, it's another very reputable hospital that is doing that. So, you know, we have plenty of room for more doctors, but we do have some of the best doctors.
So yeah, the influx of people moving here has made it very difficult for, like, especially, you know, I finally, like 2 years ago, I kept getting primary care physicians that were retiring. I would get them and have them for 2 years and they would retire, and that happened over and over again. Now I found one and I love her, and she's in Addison. And I trek quite a while for a primary. So I guess my kind of question was, because of all the influx of people, are we growing the medical community here to you know?
So let me ask you. So if I'm a young physician and I am graduating from medical school and my residency, and I want to join a practice, because almost 60% of physicians that come out of medical school and residency today, they're not solo. They're joining a group. So where in the world do you think that most of the young doctors are going when they get out of their residency training? And I'll be honest with you, Arlington is landlocked. We're 99 square miles, and we only have about maybe 1,800 acres left to develop. And so the physicians that are retiring here are slowly being replaced. But the higher number of doctors are going to the same thing in real estate: Greenfield, Forney, Prosper. They're going north, they're going south to Mansfield, they're sort of circling us. So Hurst, Euless, Bedford, Arlington. Fort Worth, Dallas, we're the older central core. And so to get physicians to come to the older central core, the doctors either need to die or retire, and there's a limited population. So there's studies out there that will show you that in the city of Arlington, you can only support so many doctors. And these corporations that hire doctors, they're not dumb. They know how many primary care doctors they need. But there's a shortage. There's not a shortage of orthopedic surgeons or neurosurgeons. There's a shortage of family practice and internal medicine, and especially pediatrics. Do you know that in Arlington does not have a pediatric emergency room? If you have a kid in Arlington, there's not one hospital, not one, a pediatric emergency in Arlington or Mansfield or HEB. Not one. So where do they all go? They either go to Cook's or they go to Dallas Children's. That's where you go if your kid is sick. And that's just the reality of what we deal with because we have such a shortage of pediatricians. I'm sorry, man. It's all, it's not about us. It's about.
That's okay, I was just informed that the house that we purchased here 6 months ago was one that he's going to die in. But we're not planning on moving, so.
I'm not moving again.
So, yeah, I'm trucking to Dallas is like, gotta change over the next several years for all
I've
of
got a
that.
good female in Fort Worth.
Yeah, and there's Dr. Maria Gatus is part of Texas Health Physicians Group. She is a wonderful family practice doctor, and she's located near Parks Mall on Arbrook. She is fantastic. There's another doctor there I know as well. The Texas Health Physicians Group has primary care doctors in a variety of offices all over the place, and it's even more beneficial. What if you're sick at 4 o'clock in the morning, or it's Saturday or Sunday afternoon? You can go to the Breeze Clinic. The Breeze Clinic is in Collins, and there's another one I think in Mansfield. But the Breeze, you're guaranteed to be in and out in less than 50 minutes. Less than 50 minutes. And they have x-ray and all that stuff right there. And it's urgent care, it's not an emergency. So you're not gonna pay an ER copay. And that's one of the advantages of being in a large healthcare group. Vote for this man. I'm gonna stop about healthcare. I've known Jim for several years now. And what I like about him, it's already been said, he's a straight shooter. He tells you like it is, and sometimes his language can be a little bit colorful. So do not pay attention to the stuff you're seeing online, because the character of the man is more important than what he may say in the heat of a passionate moment because he gives a damn. That's what's important to him.
Well said.
And he'll tell the truth.
Yep.
This character back there behind Paula, Jim, raise your hand. Jim has some sign-in sheets, and we got them here a little bit later, but if y'all could do a sign-in sheet, and so we can keep you in the loop of what's going on, and say if you're willing to volunteer, or can we use your name as an endorsement or something like that, that would be tremendously helpful. The more people I can say, will support us, the better off we are. And Jim also has a QR code if you want to donate anything on there, and he'll take whatever money you want to give him as well. Say what? Oh, thank you. Early voting starts the 20th of this month, and it goes to the 28th, and then election day is May 2nd. We're going to do something different this year because this has been the nastiest campaign I've ever been involved in. So I'm going to announce probably today, if I get home in time, that on May 2nd, on the night of May 2nd, by the way, let me tell you a little short story about Paula before I forget about this. When I first ran for mayor, my mother and father came down, and we were working the polls, and they wanted to work with me. And my mother sits down, and she's sitting out there at Elsie Odom, and her and Paula began to talk. And my mother leaves there, and she goes, "That was the nicest lady." I said, "Oh, she's managing my opponent's campaign." She goes, "Well, I would almost vote for him." And I'm like, what the hell? So, my mother loved Paula as, probably as much as I did. Anyway, what the hell was I saying?
You're gonna have a function on.
Oh, on May 2nd, we're gonna do a Night to Unite Arlington Election Watch Party. And I am inviting every candidate from every race and their supporters to come to Jay Gilligan's. I've rented out Jay Gilligan's, and I have entertainment coming out there. I'm paying for the food, and I just want the garbage to end. And whoever wins, we're gonna get supported, we're gonna move the daggum city forward. Because that's more important than any individual candidate there is, myself included. So, we'll see. I don't think all candidates will come. A lot of the other candidates I've talked to have said, yeah, they'll be happy to come out and be supportive. And it's never really been done that way before. But it's so stinking contentious right now that we need to put some closure to this thing on May 2nd and move this thing forward. So hopefully, if you're not doing anything, come on out and drink a beer with us, and we'll celebrate a victory or celebrate me going back to work at the restaurants and the law firm.
The law firm could use you.
The law firm could, yes.
Hey, Jim,
Yes, sir.
I just want to say, over the years, I've found nobody knows how to run a city, because everything changes so rapidly. You never know what's going to come up. But you've got to be ready to take it, to jump on it, to make it work. And Jim does that. It doesn't matter what's out there. He's going to look into it and bring it to us and make our city better. And in the years that I've known him, everything he has said is true. I've never heard anything he has said that is not true. When you look at budgets, there's never been a perfect budget, because they are made to move. Taxes, yeah, we need to raise taxes at times, and we need to lower taxes at times. And if it has to be done, it has to be done. But we've got a mayor, a city council, and a great city staff to make those decisions, and that's what they've done. So Jim is there for us, believe me.
Well, thank y'all. I love y'all.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. And I'll hang out and answer questions or all that stuff. Thank you. Appreciate it.